Welcome back to the channel, guys. So in today's video, we'll be building out the UI animation of the Uber login screen. We've done this earlier, but we had built that with the animated library from React Native. In this video, we'll try and move that over to react-native-reanimated along with react-native gesture handler to try and keep the animations on the native UI thread. So first things first, when the app opens up, we have that nice animation of the bottom part sliding in along with the Uber logo scaling in. Next, when we tap on the text input, we see that the size increases smoothly, the keyboard slides in, the text input gets focused, and we have this forward arrow which gets visible. Obviously, the icon size needs to be a little bigger. We'll fix that when we start building it out. When we click the back button, we see it nicely translates down, the icon disappears, and we're back to our initial screen. So everything is going to be on the native UI thread, apart from the time when the text input gets focused. For that, we'll jump back into the JavaScript thread. The keyboard will show and we'll animate our forward arrow along with the height of the keyboard. As always, this should be fun to build, so let's begin. As always, let's start with an empty React Native project. I'm starting with an Expo project. You can start with React Native CLI as well. We'll have to go ahead and install the dependencies that we need. The first thing that we need is react-native-reanimated, and we also need react-native gesture handler, and lastly we need react-native-redash, which is a helper library to help us with our animations. Once we have them installed, we can close this out. You need to just make sure that you have these particular versions of these libraries, especially for react-native-redash, since that's a helper library that we're using and we can expect that to change. So go ahead and install this particular version. Now let's come into our app.js. So the first thing is that we have that top portion which has our Uber logo. Let's go ahead and create that. Let's delete out this text from here and let's create a new view. Let's give it a style, and the style will give it a styles.logo container. We'll just shortly create those styles. Inside this, we'll create a component called logo, and let's close that out. So for logo container here, we'll give it a flex of 1 and we'll just align the items to the center and justify content center. For the container, we'll delete this out and we'll just give it a flex of 1 with a background color of white. Let's go ahead and create our logo component. So we'll create a new folder. Let's call that components. And inside that, let's create a new file and let's call that logo.js. Here I'm just going to pull in a functional component and call that logo. Inside this here on top, we'll import an animated from react-native-reanimated. Let's get rid of this view and create an animated.view. Inside this, we'll pass in a text, which will be the name of the app, which is Uber. Let's style that text by giving it a font weight of 400 and a font size of 36. Let's just save that. Let's import in logo here. From our components folder, let's get a logo and let's save that out. Let's just make sure to spread out these styles here and let's reload our app. So there we're getting Uber, and let's go ahead and style this logo component. So we'll give it a style and let's say styles.logo. Here let's get rid of container and pass in logo. Let's give it a background color of white. Let's give it a height of 120, a width of 120. Let's give it a padding of 10, and let's align the logo into the center by using align items center and justify content center. Let's save that. We don't really see anything here yet because the background color is the same. So let's come back to our app.js, and here let's just change this background color to use the background color from the app, which I've picked out to be this blue, and let's save that out. And there we're getting our logo. Now let's animate this logo to scale in. So here in our app on top, let's create a new animated value called scale. And since we're using functional components, we want to remember this value across state changes. So we'll use ref here, and then we'll create a new animated.value, which automatically imports an animated from reanimated, and we'll start with the default value of 0. Let's save that. Then we'll say const scale animation. Here basically what we want to do is When we set scale from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 0, we want to run a timing animation based on which we can animate the scale. For that, we'll use the with timing transition helper from redash. All it does is, in the background, it'll run a timing animation based on when scale.current changes. We're using current here because we've set scale to use ref, and therefore we want the current value. Now what we want to do is we want to run this animation the moment the app opens up, and for that we'll use the use code hook that's available to us from react-native-reanimated. So we'll say use code. Inside this, we'll check for a condition in which we'll check if scale is equal to, that is scale.current is equal to 0, then set scale.current to 1. We'll pass in no dependencies because we only want this to run once, and let's save that out. Let's go ahead and import in set here. Let's save that and let's reload the app. And it looks like I installed an incorrect package. There should have been React Native Gesture Handler instead of React Native Gesture. So I'm just going to go ahead and install that. Here we'll say npm install React Native Gesture Handler. And we can just uninstall that library that we installed by mistake by saying React Native Gesture and pass in uninstall. Now go ahead and reload the app, and the app is working. So now when the use code hook runs, it checks if scale.current is 0 and it sets scale.current to 1. Here we're using the with timing transition, which will animate scale.current from 0 to 1 with a timing transition. So that's exactly what we want to do with our logo. We want it to transition from 0 to 1. So we can take the scale animation and pass it into our logo component. Let's pass it in as scale, and we'll pass in scale animation. Save that out, come into our logo, and here let's pull in scale that we passed in. And let's pass in a transform property to our animated view. And we transform the scale to the scale that's passed in. Let's save that, and we can reload the app again to see that. And there we see our logo scales in nicely. We can actually just set that to scale directly. And that seems to work as well. In the next video, we'll go ahead and build out the bottom sliding component, which slides in nicely with the Uber logo scaling in.